The last warning. The ambulance lights painted Sara Mitchell's bedroom walls in violent streaks of red and blue. At 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in suburban Chicago, the 52-year-old marketing executive lay on her hardwood floor, clutching her chest, certain she was dying. Her teenage daughter, Mia's screams still echoed in her ears as the paramedics rushed in. This wasn't how Sara imagined her life would unravel alone, overweight and gasping for air while her terrified child watched helplessly. The ER doctor's words hit harder than the chest pains. "Mrs. Mitchell, you're having a severe panic attack triggered by dangerously high blood pressure. 190/120. Your cholesterol is 310. Your liver enzymes suggest early fatty liver disease. You're pre-diabetic. Frankly, if you don't change everything, you're looking at a major cardiac event within 2 years. Maybe less." Part 1. The breaking point. Sara Mitchell had been running on empty for 5 years, ever since her divorce from Tom shattered her carefully constructed life. She threw herself into work, climbing the corporate ladder at a relentless pace, proving to everyone, especially her ex-husband, that she didn't need anyone. 14-hour workdays became normal. Fast food in the car became dinner. A bottle of Chardonnay each night became her only companion. Her body had been whispering warnings for months: the constant fatigue, the swollen ankles, the breathlessness climbing stairs at work, the way her heart raced when she stood up too quickly. Sara ignored every signal. She was too busy, too important, too determined to acknowledge weakness. But at 3:47 a.m., her body stopped whispering and started screaming. In the sterile hospital room, watching dawn break over Lake Michigan through the window, Sara made a decision. Not the half-hearted, "I should really eat better" promises she'd made before. This was different. This was life or death. Her daughter was only 16, Sara couldn't leave her orphaned, because she was too stubborn to change. The nurse who checked her vitals that morning, an older woman named Patricia with kind eyes, said something that stayed with Sara. "Honey, I've worked in this cardiac unit for 30 years. I can tell who's going to make it and who isn't. The survivors? They're the ones who get angry enough to fight back." Sara felt that anger ignite. Part 2. The brutal beginning. Day 1 felt impossible. Sara stood in her kitchen at 5:30 a.m., staring at running shoes she'd bought 3 years ago and never worn. The tags were still on them. Outside, November rain hammered against the windows of her Evanston home. Every instinct screamed to go back to bed, to start tomorrow, to wait for better weather, to make excuses. Instead, she laced up those shoes with trembling hands and walked out the door. That first walk lasted 7 minutes. Just around 2 blocks. She came home drenched, wheezing, humiliated. But she had done it. The next morning was worse. Her legs ached. The rain was heavier. The voice in her head, the one that had always told her she wasn't good enough, that she'd fail anyway, roared louder than ever. But she walked. 8 minutes this time. The grocery store trip that afternoon brought its own battle. Sara stood in front of the frozen pizza section, her old reliable comfort, and forced herself to turn away. She filled her cart with vegetables she didn't know how to cook, whole grains that looked unappetizing, lean proteins that seemed bland and joyless. She spent that evening watching YouTube cooking videos, burning quinoa, and crying over a sad-looking salad. Her co-workers at the marketing firm noticed the changes immediately. Brad from accounting made a joke about her rabbit food lunch. Jennifer from her team raised an eyebrow at Sara leaving at 5:30 p.m. instead of her usual 8. The old Sara would have stayed late to prove herself. The new Sara, the one fighting for her life, walked out anyway. Mia watched her mother with a mixture of hope and skepticism. The teenager had seen her mom make promises before. How long is this going to last? she asked on day 3. Not cruel but realistic. Forever, Sara answered, not sure if she believed it herself. Part 3: The Dark Middle. Week 3 brought the real test. Sara's boss, Richard, called her into his office. Sara, the Henderson account needs someone to fly to New York. For 3 days of intensive meetings. You're my best closer. This is a $2 million deal. The old Sara would have said yes instantly. But New York meant hotel gyms she'd never use, client dinners at steakhouses, working breakfasts of bagels and pastries, stress eating at midnight. New York meant abandoning the fragile routine keeping her alive. I can handle it remotely, Sara heard herself say. I'll give you results without the travel. Richard's face hardened. Are you turning down a major opportunity? I'm choosing not to die, Sara said quietly. And I'll still land this account. She did. From her home office, making calls, sending proposals, and actually sleeping 7 hours a night. The Henderson Group signed. Richard was stunned. Sara was exhausted but alive. By week 6, Sara's morning walks had stretched to 45 minutes. She discovered a trail near the Botanic Gardens and made friends with other early morning walkers, a retired teacher named Dorothy and a young nurse named Carlos who worked night shifts. They became her accountability crew, texting each other on rough mornings. We walking today or we quitting? None of them ever quit. Midpoint call to action. If Sara's story resonates with you, if you felt trapped by your own habits, scared by your own body, desperate for change, know this: your transformation doesn't start with perfection. It starts with one walk in the rain, one salad instead of takeout, one choice to fight for yourself. What's your day 1 going to look like? Part 4: The Unexpected Transformation. Month 3 brought something Sara never anticipated: joy. Her daughter convinced her to try a Zumba class at the local community center. Sara almost said no at 52. Overweight and uncoordinated, she'd be the oldest, slowest person there. She'd embarrass herself. But Mia's eyes pleaded with her. Mom, I want to do this with you. The class was ridiculous. Sara missed every step, bumped into people, and sweated through her T-shirt in the first 10 minutes. But the instructor, a vibrant woman named Lucia, caught her eye and shouted over the music, "You're doing it. That's all that matters." Something broke open inside Sara, or maybe it broke free. For the first time in 5 years, she laughed. Really laughed. Not the polite corporate chuckle or the sad wine-drunk laugh, but pure, unexpected joy. She kept going back. Wednesday and Saturday mornings became sacred. Mia danced beside her, and slowly, Sara's body remembered what it felt like to move with pleasure instead of pain. Her coworkers stopped making jokes when Sara lost 30 pounds. Then 40. Her face regained its color. Her eyes brightened. She had energy in meetings that made younger colleagues struggle to keep up. At her 4-month checkup, Dr. Patel stared at the numbers in disbelief. Your blood pressure is 118/78. Cholesterol down to 195. You've lost 45 pounds. Sara, I've been practicing medicine for 20 years. And I rarely see this level of transformation. What's your secret? Fear, Sara said honestly. And then something better than fear. I remembered what it feels like to be alive. Part 5: The Setback. Month 6, Sara's ex-husband Tom announced he was getting remarried. To someone younger, fitter, more successful. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, a wedding at a resort in Arizona. The kind of place where everyone would be beautiful and Sara would feel judged. That night, Sara stood in her kitchen, staring at a pint of Ben and Jerry's she'd bought for Mia. She held it in her hands, feeling the cold burn through her fingers. Every cell in her body wanted that comfort, that numbing sweetness, that old familiar escape. She thought about not going to the wedding. She thought about giving up. She thought about how much easier life was when she didn't care. Instead, she put the ice cream back in the freezer and called Dorothy, her walking friend. At 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, the 68-year-old woman answered immediately. "What's wrong, honey?" "I want to quit," Sara sobbed. "I want to go back to not feeling anything." "But you're not going to," Dorothy said, not a question but a fact. "Because you know what waits for you there. Come on, put your shoes on. We're walking." They walked for 2 hours that night, around Sara's neighborhood, under streetlights and stars. Dorothy told her own story, how she'd lost her husband to a heart attack at 55. How she'd watched him ignore every warning sign because he was too proud to change. "Don't waste the gift of that wake-up call," Dorothy said. "Some people don't get one." Sara went to Tom's wedding. She wore a dress she hadn't fit into in a decade. She danced at the reception. She made peace with her past. And she left early to get home for her Sunday morning hike. Part 6: The Reckoning. Month 10, Sara stood at the starting line of a 5K charity run in downtown Chicago. Surrounded by thousands of runners. A year ago, she couldn't walk 7 minutes. Now she was about to run 3.1 miles. Mia stood beside her, wearing matching race bibs. "Mom, are you nervous?" "Terrified," Sara admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway." The gun went off. Sara ran. Not fast, she was passed by people in their 70s, by parents pushing strollers, by teenagers barely trying. But she ran. One foot in front of the other. Breathing hard. Muscles burning. Mind clear. At mile 2, her old self tried to resurface. The voice that whispered, she wasn't good enough. That she should quit, that this was too hard. But there was a new voice, now stronger, clearer. It said, "You didn't survive that hospital room to give up now." She crossed the finish line at 38 minutes. Not winning any medals, but alive, strong, free. Mia hugged her at the finish, both of them crying. "I'm so proud of you, Mom." "I'm proud of us," Sara said. "We did this together." Part 7: The Ripple Effect. 1 year after that ambulance ride, Sara Mitchell stood in the same ER where she'd almost given up. But this time, she was there for Dr. Patel's hospital-wide wellness seminar. They'd asked her to speak about her transformation. She looked out at an audience of nurses, doctors, patients, and families all struggling with their own health battles. "A year ago, I was lying on my floor, certain I was dying," Sara began. "I was 80 pounds heavier, miserable, and convinced I didn't deserve better. I want to tell you that change was easy, but it wasn't. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than my divorce. Harder than building my career. Harder than anything. But here's what I learned: you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be persistent. You don't have to transform overnight. You just have to show up even when it's raining, even when you're tired. Even when every part of you wants to quit. I learned that I was worth fighting for. That my daughter deserved a mother who'd be at her wedding someday. That life isn't about being comfortable, it's about being alive. If you're sitting here feeling hopeless, feeling like it's too late, feeling like you've failed too many times, I promise you, it's not too late. Your story isn't over. Mine wasn't. And yours isn't either." The room erupted in applause. Afterward, people lined up to talk to her. A diabetic teacher who'd been making excuses, a heart attack survivor who'd fallen back into old habits, a young mother who felt overwhelmed. Sara gave them the same advice Dorothy had given her: tomorrow morning. Put your shoes on. That's all. Just see what happens. Epilogue. 18 months later. Sara Mitchell celebrated her 54th birthday by hiking 10 miles in Starved Rock State Park with Mia and a group of friends she'd made through fitness classes. Her blood work was perfect. She'd been promoted at work not because she worked the longest hours, but because she was the most creative and energized leader on the team. Her daughter was thriving, applying to colleges, confident and strong. You taught me something important, Mom, Mia said over birthday cake, which Sara ate and enjoyed in moderation. You taught me that giving up is easy, but fighting is worth it. Sara still walked every morning. She still meal prepped on Sundays. She still went to Zumba twice a week. Not because she had to, but because these things had become part of who she was, the version of herself she'd fought so hard to become. Sometimes she thought about that night on her bedroom floor. The ambulance lights, the terror. She'd never want to go through that again. But in a strange way, she was grateful for it. That moment had been her last warning. And she'd listened. Sara's story is proof that it's never too late. You're never too far gone, and you're always worth the fight. Your wake-up call might not be as dramatic as an ambulance ride. Maybe it's the way you feel when you climb stairs. Or the fear you see in your children's eyes, or the quiet voice inside that says, "This isn't how I want to live." Whatever it is, listen to it. Your transformation starts with one choice, one day, one step. What are you waiting for? Thank you for listening to our channel, and please subscribe and like us to better serve you.